My relationship with books has been interesting. I never really liked reading in school, and much to my parents' chagrin, I was the Asian kid who was not good at math, so they were pretty worried. Now, English and history came a little bit more naturally to me, but I just wasn't very studious. I realized later on in life that wasn't because I didn't like reading, it's just because I wasn't interested in the subject matter. So, I have categorized these books the best that I can, and all these books are ones I've no issue recommending to anybody. They've been meaningful to me, not just meaningful, but pivotal in who I've become as a person. And before I dive into this, I would actually recommend you do the same thing. Put together a book list, all the books that have really, really impacted your life. It's really interesting for me to see what has resonated with me, some of the patterns that I saw. It was very apparent that I really believe in fundamentals and doing the basics really well. That's reflected in a lot of my business and marketing choices. There's also a section of books that were really, really important to me when I was going through the personal upheaval of a divorce. I hope you never go through that ever. It was really tough, but um, these resources really helped me. Many of them were recommended to me by counselors and therapists I worked with at the time, and they've been lessons that I've carried. I've had a lot of people reach out to me through the years behind back channels, right? And as they've navigated those own situations for themselves, and these are books that I've absolutely recommended to them more than once. I also want to say something about comic books. When I was growing up, again, to my parents' chagrin, the only reading I seemed to do was comic books, and I was a '90s kid in that era. Where I was, was growing up in junior high and high school in the '90s, and this was the time of the big comic book boom. That's the period where a lot of the modern superhero movies based their plot lines off of, and there was no way I could read all those comics back at that age. I didn't have the money for them, and my mom hated the idea of me reading comic books, and so I snuck out and bought them and things like that. But when I got older, I was able to read through them, get the graphic novels, which are really just one volume of comic books mashed together. I wasn't trying to collect the comic books; I just wanted to read the stories. Became really apparent that the visuals were very important as I looked through those comic books. So that has actually bled over into how I do marketing. I just really care about the look. I care about the aesthetic. I care about the feel. And I realize, like, looking back now, that eye for design started all the way back then. Now, as a bonus, I've put together a few YouTube channels that I enjoy right now. I don't watch every episode of every one of them, but they are channels that I regularly watch. I don't generally watch a lot of business content on YouTube. I prefer to read. And if they are for entertainment, it's like this kind of stuff or sports podcasts, which I'm not going to put on this list. All right. So now, one final thing, just because I found a book insightful or meaningful doesn't mean I necessarily stand by the author and who they are as people, their political or religious beliefs. But you read in order to widen your perspective and gain understanding and insight, right? And that's the beauty of books. So if you see a few on here, you're like, wow, I can't believe he's recommending me this, or that's interesting. That's why, because I think we should read things that we're not used to reading so that we understand more of the world. All right, let's get into my list. You will probably find that it's a little bit sulky and serious and dark. Maybe that's why I wear dark clothes all the time. I should probably read some happier books, but here it goes in no particular order. Let me start with memoirs. These are stories of obsessive creators who built something meaningful. I really admire their unconventional path. I also admire that they're not very sanitized. So, Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. It really hit me in chapter 3 in that book. Confessions of an Advertising Man by David Ogilvy. It's like the original Mad Men, right? Like Mad Men, if you've seen that show. And Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, which absolutely convinced me that I never want to start a company. Okay. All right. So those are some of my memoirs. All right, let's go to money and mindset. Money is a tool for freedom and meaning to me. It's not just status. Okay. It's not, I don't really care about status, but these books challenge my scarcity thinking. They explore the psychological, spiritual, and practical sides of building wealth. And God knows I needed it. We did not grow up with money. I was always struggling as a kid when we were growing up. And so, in no particular order, but these are books I really, really find just helpful. You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. I love how she's just raw and just tells you like it is. Live Life Rich by my friend Marissa Nielsen. I'm biased towards this because I worked on this book with Marissa, but it's the only book that I've found out there that's actually very practical for small business owners on how to run their finances, what to do with the finances in building a business, and how to sock away money in order to build wealth. So pick up that book. A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Gikondi. This was recommended by numbers of people in my mastermind group. Love this one. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. All timer right there. I mean, in one of my top 10 books of all time, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Another top 10 book of all time for me, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's not a coincidence that a lot of entrepreneurs and very successful, wealthy people have talked about this book. And a book you may not know much about, Quantum Success by Sandra Ann Taylor. It's a little woo woo. I found this book to be very, very powerful. I studied it, meditated a lot on it, and there are affirmations in that book that I listen to almost every night. I recorded myself reading the affirmations that Ms. Taylor puts in her book. I made a voice track of it, and I listen to it going to bed at night very regularly, still till this day, many years later. All right, books about life and meaning, books where you read when external success isn't enough anymore, right? Purpose beyond achievement, wisdom through suffering, not just in spite of suffering, and the shift from building a career to really building a life. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, an all timer. I mean, everyone should read that book. This is Viktor Frankl in a concentration camp talking about the meaning of life. I mean, first, I don't ever want to go through that, but thank God for this book. The Second Mountain by David Brooks. I mean, just an absolute game changer. I've talked about this book several times in previous episodes. Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I love this book. Just a real historical look, scientific look at the expanse of us as a species. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Learning to Love Midlife by Chip Conley. Late Bloomers by Rich Karlgaard. I feel like I'm a late bloomer. Same as Ever by Morgan Housel, same author of The Psychology of Money. The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. Oh my gosh, creative genius. I want to get inside this guy's head, see how he sees the world. Three Kingdoms, Chinese historical novel, one of the great jewels of Chinese literature. And Tools of Titans. I mean, it's like this thick by Tim Ferriss, an aggregation of people he knows and has interviewed on his global podcast. Why not pick that up? I mean, it's been incredible. Okay. Philosophy and Critical Thinking. These are books about mental models for navigating life, uncertainty, complexity. I really liked getting inside the mind of these authors. Think Again by Adam Grant. Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Those two books. Oh, I just love his writing. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Dark, tough to read at times, but sometimes you got to eat your medicine. All right, that's a great book. Strategy by Lawrence Friedman. It's a thick one here, and Principles by Ray Dalio. It just incredible minds. Love getting inside of them. Okay, personal development mindset work, right? Inner work that makes the outer work possible. Moving past upper limits, doing work when it's hard. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That was really for guys. I heard about this book at a Tony Robbins conference, and it was absolutely life-changing for me. Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. I've talked often about that book. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and The Artist's Journey by Stephen Pressfield. Pressfield has such an amazing style of writing. I love it. It's taut, it's snappy, it's in your face. If you're a creative of any kind, you got to read some of his stuff. The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell, an all-timer for me. Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. Quitter by John Acuff. There's a name that I haven't heard in a long, long time. I read this book when I was first starting and dabbling with the idea of quitting my day job and starting my own business. I got to say, this book gave me a lot of courage to do that. Relentless by Tim Grover. Tim Grover is a coach. He works oftentimes one-on-one with some of the world's greatest athletes. This dude is in your face. Great book. Life Visioning by Michael Bernard Beckwith. Kind of woo-woo, but love his stuff. I listen to Michael Bernard Beckwith on Spotify when I work out. He's like motivational, gospel-y, preachy, mixed with The Secret. I mean, dude, amazing. The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss taught me a lot about diet, nutrition. Hey, I'm not an expert, but when I went on that slow-carb diet he talks about in that book, really changed my life. Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, The Power is Within You by Louise Hay, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. All right, relationships and professional networking. This is all about connections, right? Life is all about relationships. I always say relationships are rocket ships. This is more than just schmoozing. This is intentional community building. Mastermind Dinners by Jason Gaynor, The 2 Hour Cocktail Party by Nick Gray, Rich Relationships by my friend Selena Sue. Right here, I got a copy right here. Okay, Rich Relationships by Selena Sue, and Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. I read that very early on in my career when I started my business. Absolutely foundational. Okay, let me get into these relationship healing books. Okay, that I mentioned before. It's Hard Won Wisdom, and man, when you're going through something like that, your emotions are all over the place, as you can imagine. And these books really, really, really helped me. Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Crazy Time by Abigail Trafford. Man, I feel weird reading these books, like just thinking about these books again because it reminds me of that time. Getting Past Your Breakup by Susan Elliott. Stop Caretaking the Borderline or Narcissist by Margalis Fjallstad. I hope I'm saying that right. I Hate You, Don't Leave Me by Gerald Kreisman and Hal Strauss. Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay by Mira Kirschenbaum. Incredible book. Keys to the Kingdom by Alison Armstrong. From what I recall, Ms. Armstrong is a therapist or counselor, and she wrote this book on behalf of men for women to understand. It was really interesting, like based off the work that she did with her male clients. So I found that really interesting. And Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, one of my all-time top 10 list books. I mean, so foundational to me. All right, let's get into the marketing and branding books. Ogilvy on Advertising by David Ogilvy. A lot of these are going to be classics. The Boron Letters by Gary Halbert. Advertising Headlines That Make You Rich by David Garfinkel. Influence by Robert Cialdini. The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Al Ries and Jack Trout. Great Leads by Michael Masterson and John Ford. Very overlooked. Great book. Tested Advertising Methods by John Capel. The Copywriter's Handbook by Robert Bly. Primal Branding by Patrick Hanlon. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Look, that framework, I mean, it's influenced a lot of how I do things, and I got to work on that book with Don. Launch by Jeff Walker. Required reading. Whether you like his style or not, you got to read it. If you're marketing anything on the internet, you got to read that book. It's a textbook. How the World Sees You by Sally Hogshead. I love Sally Hogshead. I hope one day to meet her. She does incredible work. Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. I mean, a tiny little book. Incredible, power packed. Got to get that book. Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall, and Marketing Warfare by Al Ries and Jack Trout. You may have heard me mention those guys before. You can't go wrong with anything written by Ries and Trout. They are classic marketing authors. Okay, a couple of books on entrepreneurship and business, which is a big category. So let me splice these up a little bit. Specifically for entrepreneurs, E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. That's about money and how you handle your money in business. Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. Oh my goodness. Amazing book. It's one I have to study over and over again because you forget, but he just frames that. Those are words he uses, frames. Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff, and Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Here it is in my stack right on my desk. Dan's great, right? You may have seen him blow up on YouTube in recent years. Okay, as for the other business books, Getting Started in Consulting by Alan Weiss. This was the first book I read on consulting way back when. I like Weiss's contrarian style. He's really just he's not your cup of tea. He's like a shot of whiskey. All right, but he's great. Reinventing You by Dory Clark. I've gotten to meet Dory once or twice throughout my career, and I've told her every time, your book really helped me get started. It really gave me permission to change the life path that I was on. Business Brilliant by Lewis Schiff, a completely overlooked, underrated, unheard of book. The premise behind this, Schiff surveyed very wealthy people and moderately wealthy people, and the whole book is about mythbusters, right? The comparison between what wealthy people say and moderately successful people say. Incredible insight. Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. Again, he wrote Profit First. Clockwork was the impetus for me to build my business in a way where I could take 30 days off from work at a time. So if you've heard me ever talk about how I took a month off from work, there you go. That's it. Thought Leaders Practice by Matt Church. I wish I heard of this book earlier in my career. I think I would have been on a way faster, more efficient path. Great stuff. Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. Guidara was at the time, or the whole book is written about 11 Madison Park, which is a 3-star Michelin restaurant here in New York City. And you want to talk about hospitality and building a business, look no further than restaurants. Stone's Rules by Roger Stone. This is one of those books you're like, what? How did that make the list? I couldn't put that one down. It was fascinating to me. Again, he's not my cup of tea. It was really interesting to see from how this guy saw the world. And what I would say about that was the juxtaposition of how he's talking about politics, business, and fashion. It was really interesting just to see how this guy saw the world. Okay. And finally, by my friend Wendy Schenkel, again, an overlooked book, maybe one you haven't heard of, The Purse Strings Effect. Wendy's been a good friend of mine for a long, long time. And this book, she's like, look, Mike, this is what women think and want when they're doing business. You need to understand this. So, Purse Strings Effect by Wendy Schenkel. All right, we're at the home stretch here. Graphic novels and comic books and other fiction. I don't read enough fiction, but it's very clear to me that I love complex narratives. I love flawed heroes, dark aesthetics. They're not really beach reads. They're stories about power, injustice, justice, vengeance, all this stuff. So rather than go through each title, I'm going to just give you a couple of series that I really like. Basically, anything in the Game of Thrones series by George R. R. Martin. I started reading those before the show came out. And so I wanted to at least stay ahead of the show. And my goodness, the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones is spot on with the books. And after they caught up where Martin didn't continue the books, I mean, it fell off. The TV show fell off. But I loved those books. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series by Stieg Larsson, the first three. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. Fascinating and kind of tragic story. Larsson died before these books hit it big globally. There's some shady circumstances around his death. He was very, very vocal against his government, and I haven't looked it up in a long while, but just kind of sad. You know, this guy's books got turned into movies. Daniel Craig starred in the U.S. version. I couldn't put those three books down. Those three, the first three. They have since taken bits of manuscripts that Larsson wrote that people found on his computers and things like that, and they hired other writers to fill in the rest. But those first three were really good. The Da Vinci Code, wow, way back novel by Dan Brown. Look, it was all a rage when it first came out, especially because I was really in the church community world back then. It was my guilty pleasure. I loved it. I love a good mystery, and I love all the mythology and all that stuff. It was awesome. I mentioned a couple of comic books, so these are all going to be pretty dark, all right? Batman, I love Batman as a comic book. The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. Oh my gosh, incredible. Batman The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, one of my favorite comic book artists of all time, fellow Korean Jim Lee. And Sin City by Frank Miller. I was way too young to read that thing. I absolutely hid it from my mom. Maybe you know that they made a movie, Sin City, years and years ago. And it was just this black and white comic book, dark aesthetic. I had no idea what was going on. I was way too young to read. I think I got my hands on it when I was like 14 years old. And I was like, wait, what? Is this comic book? Like, what is going on here? Great, great comic book. Okay. I mentioned the YouTube channels. Deep explanation, good visuals. I love these channels. Johnny Harris, deep dive investigative journalism, geopolitics, stunning visuals, real serious. I can't always watch all of them, but man, this guy deserves all the subscribers he's attracted and more. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Kurzges in a nutshell. Complex science and philosophy made accessible through beautiful animation. Check it out. Oversimplified history education through humor, brilliant storytelling, and stick figures. Gotta love it. The infographics show, data-driven explainers on everything from military to culture. I hope I'm saying this guy's name right. Ines Ilmazer. Ultra luxury real estate tours and architectural deep dives. Oh my gosh, these are houses I dream of. I don't even know that I would want to own one because I think I'd be so lonely inside of that huge house by myself. I had to buy a family to come with the house. But my goodness, this guy's channel and the things that he shows you real estate wise, unbelievable. Dorkly, this is my comic book side coming out, gaming and pop culture humor. And if you're a movie person like me and you don't always you lose track of stories, man of recaps, TV show and movie breakdowns and analysis. It is hilarious. This guy breaks down he broke down the Avatar movies that take 3 years to watch. Okay, because those stupid things are so long. And you get the story in like 3 minutes, 7 minutes. He is incredible, not just for the content and the recap, but the way he does it is fascinating from a creative standpoint to me. All right. Finally, newsletters. I don't really a ton of newsletters, but I got to give a shout out to these two who I both personally know. I want Signal in a world of noise. Both of these newsletters, I almost never miss an issue. The first is my friend Lauren Johnson with Midweek Mindset. Lauren, the longtime friend, professional speaker, former mental performance coach for the New York Yankees. And every Wednesday, I tune into her video and her newsletter, and it's just a shot in the arm of like focus and mindset. And The Digital Contrarian by Ryan Levesque, contrarian marketing and business insights, challenging conventional wisdom. Highly recommend you check him out. Okay, so this is my list. I would absolutely love to hear what some of your top books, newsletters, comic books, fiction, YouTube channels are. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. I'd love to hear from you. Let's just help each other grow. And again, this is a long list. So just go to the link in the description for this episode, mikekim.com/book list. I will update that regularly when I have a new book that I feel should get on there. And I hope you enjoyed this. I'm curious what you have tuned into and what you've been shaped by. Let's share the love. I'll see you back here on the next video. Okay. Hope you liked it.